Yeah, good evening, class. Sorry, we are unable to share the screen. We are very sorry for that. It might be the system issue. Today, we want to discuss about the supply concept of supply. Last week, we discussed about the concept of demand. Under it, we were able to explain what it's all about, what demand is all about, factors that affect demand. We're able to interpret the law that guides demand inside that and some exception to demand laws. Today we'll discuss about the supply, talks about the factors that affect supply, and also talk about the law that guides supply. In defining supply, you don't have to cram the formula or the definition of it. But the major aspect of it is for you to understand what a supply is all about. What is supply? Supply is mainly talking about you selling something, produce goods and sell it out. So every other thing, every other definition, every other thing you are putting inside is all about you bringing out something and sell it to your consumer or your customer. That's the major point they need. That means the ability and willingness to produce and sell. The ability and willingness to produce and sell, that's the major concept. So that means you don't have to say, okay, I want to do a cram a certain formula or something. But in a definition, if you're asked to define it, the major aspect or the major concept that you need to put into the definition is the ability or able and willing to produce and sell. Because you might find it difficult to differentiate whenever they ask you a question about the supply and demand. But when you are talking about the supply, you're talking about the willingness to sell something. But the demand is talking about the ability to buy something. In this content, we are going to define supply in this form. The supply of a commodity is the relationship between its market price and the amount of that commodity that producers are able and willing to produce and sell. That's just the supply for you. It's just talking about the relationship between the price and the amount of the quantity that the producer are able. That means what's the price now? If they are selling this thing for 20 naira, how many units will the producer been able to sell or to put to the market? How many is he willing to produce in order to meet up with the market? Don't forget that the major factor that affects the supply is the price of it. What is the price of that particular product? Because we are in the market to make profits. The seller is in the market to make profits, while the consumer is in the market to get the best satisfaction. In that case, the producer is willing to maximize his own profits, and consumer is willing to minimize cost. How do I minimize cost? That's the consumer, which is the demand. So, if we're talking about the relationship that exists between the market price and the amount of the commodity, what the commodity, how many quantity would the producer be able and willing to produce? Then we now assume that other things being equal, that's ceteris paribus. So that's the definition of supply. It's the relationship between the market price and the amount of that commodity that producers are willing and able to produce and sell. Other things being equal. That means we assume that there is no any other changes, there is no government policy, there is availability of markets, there's availability of products, we assume all those things. Then we now pick one thing, just the price. At that price, how many quantity will you be willing or able to supply to the market? The seller's aim is assumed to be to maximize his or her profit. The seller, which is the supplier, its aim, its target is to maximize profit. If you are talking about maximization of profit, what does it mean? The maximization of profit is talking about to get the maximum profit on that particular goods. If I sell 20 units,
bro,
when the price is 15 naira, yep.
Can you see the screen now?
No.
Yeah, it's showing now. I can see it.
I can't see it. It's even dark.
Okay.
It's even dark.
I can see it. You know what? Just continue. If you can't see it, just continue.
Okay. So if you are talking about the maximization of profits, we are talking about to get the maximum profit, maximum level of profit by producing a certain unit of goods to the market. How do I mean? If I produce 20 units when the price is at 15 naira, I will make certain profit. If the price now goes up to, let's say, 17 naira, it's better for me to produce more when the price increase, because I will get maximum, I will get enough profit on it. That's what the supplier will always aim for. You have to aim for the best price and aim for getting the best satisfaction from it. Therefore, he or she is willing to sell more at higher prices because this makes production more profitable. That means you are going to make more profits if the price increase. Similar to demand, supply can also be defined for individual sellers. That means individual supply, and for the market as a whole or total market supply. Now we can define supply in two other angles, from looking at it from two perspectives now. Looking at it from individual supply and looking at it from the market supply. If they are talking about individual supply, they are talking about the quantity of goods that Mr. A is able and willing to produce at a certain price. That's individual. But if you are talking about the market supply, it's talking about the totality of quantity that the market, that means Mr. A, B, C, D, can supply to the market at a certain price level. That's the market supply. Market, whenever you see market supply, market demand, it's talking about the totality of it. But if we see individual supply or individual sellers, it's talking about individual sellers. That means Mr. A, not the combination of A, B, C, and D. That is individual supply, which is also equivalent to individual sellers. If I take goods to the market now, if you are to divide my own goods, that means that's by individual, Mr. A. But if you join the one that Mr. John, Mr. BC, and myself is going to take to the market, we are talking about the totality of it. That's the total market supply. Whenever you see market supply, you are talking about the whole market. That means the totality of it. So let's discuss about factors that affect supply. What are the factors that determine the number of quantity you are going to produce? What are the factors that's going to tell you that, oh, Oga, you need to increase this unit you are producing? These are the factors that affect supply. It might be negative, it might be positive. But the factor that will change your mind, or that will make you to think that, okay, this is what I can do, this is what I have to do in the market. One of the major factors is the price, as explained earlier. So the supply for a particular, the price of that particular product. Now, supply some other factors that supply depend on, other factors that also affect price, supply of goods, apart from that particular product. This include the cost of production. You factor, if the cost of production is so high and you have Naira to produce the goods, in that say 200 Naira producing 1 unit, with that 1,000 Naira, which is your total income, you can produce it. But now the cost of production, the laborers, they've increased their price, the raw materials price has increased in the market. So you still have that income level, which is the 1,000 Naira with you. Now the cost of production has increased to 250 per one. So you've been able to be producing that 5 units you are producing before. Now the units you are going to be producing now will reduce to 4. And it's what you are producing that you are going to sell, you are going to push to the market. That's the ability or invest it for long run. So because of that, you might decide to say, okay, let me invest like 200 Naira. It's what you are willing to make use of is the 800. And is that 800 that you are going to use in order to produce those goods? And it's now depend on the unit that goods, that 800 can produce. So that would be what you are able and willing to produce. That's the second factor. The third factor that we have to consider here is the availability of productive resources. Now you have the money. Do you have the resources? If the answer is yes, you can produce using the resources available. You have the money. You have the resources, but do you have the knowledge to produce it? Because knowledge is also a resource. It's a machine that you make use of. You can have the money without knowing what to do with it. And you have the resources beside you. You have the inputs, what they use to produce this and that, but you don't have the knowledge of how to produce it. That's why knowledge too is also part of it. It's also part of the resources needed to produce a certain unit of goods. The fourth aspect, which is the number 4, which is the price or supply of other products competing with the actual products. That means you have to consider your competitors' price to know what to produce. If you have a competing price in the market, others producers, they are competing with you. You have to be mindful of what to produce. But if you have the monopoly power, there's no any competitors in the market, and the market is available for you, you can produce as many as possible. But a situation whereby there's a competitors in the market, what you do is to consider their own price and factor it into what you are going to produce. If you have the best price in the market, at that point, you believe that customer will surely come and meet you. And those customers will come and produce, you can sell to them at that best price. But a situation whereby you are not the one controlling the market in terms of the price. You have competitors controlling the markets. You have to be mindful of what you produce. You don't produce excess in that situation. You produce at a certain level, considering the competitors in the market. The other aspect of it is the seller's expectations about the future. If the seller is expecting that there is going to be scarcity of this product in the long run, there is going to be scarcity of the product in the long run, what they do is that to produce small units of that product instead of you producing excess, and keep the resources you have with you so that you can make use of it and produce more in the long run. You can make use of the available resources to produce more in the long run due to the fact that you have expectation, you are aware, or people are saying that the price of these goods is about to increase, or the price, there's going to be scarcity of it. Or if you have the information that price of it is about to increase, you keep what you have. You not supply excess, you not supply enough to the market, because you know that very soon, with time, the price of it will increase. So at that point, you don't supply, you keep it, you save your product. You'll be supplying small. But once they increase the price, you cannot push it to the market and make huge profits on it. The other aspect of it is the number of sellers or producers. Number of sellers or producers. How many sellers or producers do we have in the market? Share, the percentage of the market that you have with you. Once you look at that, then you can now use that one to determine the number of units you have to. So that's the summary affects demand. So we go further by looking at some other those feeling it very well. How do I mean? So let's pick it one after the other. Apart from the price that are very straightforward, so the other aspect of it, we have to explain this one. The cost of production of the goods. Now, when production costs for a commodity are high, the seller needs higher market prices to attain profit. The cost of production is usually determined by technology, and changing the technology often changes the supplied quantities of the commodity. Now, the cost of production determines what you are to produce. Once the cost for a product of a commodity are high, the seller needs higher market price. So that means for you to attain that profit level, and you discover that the cost of production is very high, what you can as well do is to still produce higher quantity, or you maintain that quantity you are producing, but they have to increase the price so you can attain your profit. If not, you'll be making a loss. So the second one is the availability of the productive resources needed for producing the goods. Even with efficient technology, the production of a given commodity may require scarce inputs. There are some inputs that might be scarce in the market that you won't even see it or been able to get those goods in order to produce in the market. There are alternatives alternatives for utilizing these scarce productive resources, and they might earn higher profits when used for producing something else. Now, the inputs that you have to produce that goods, you can as well make use of it for producing another product entirely and attain a higher profit margin on that. So because of that, what we can do as well is to say, okay, let me use out of the 20 units that I have here, let me use 15 for this one. I use 5 on other products to produce another commodity, and you make a profit, good margin on it. The third one, which is the prices and supplies of other products. The market may offer close substitutes for our commodity, and sellers must consider their prices and supplied quantities. If the producer can produce the commodity at higher cost than the market price of the substitute product, then there is no hope of attaining profits, and the seller may choose to exit the market. Now, if price of other products, price of your competitors, your substitute group, if their price is so high, that means it's going to affect what you are producing positively. Because their price is so high, they will come, customer will come to your side and buy your own, and buy that from you. For a situation whereby the price is not high, or probably their price is very low and your own price is high, customer will move from your side and go to their side so that to buy those products from them. Before you know, it will now start affecting the total quantity you are selling out, which is the major determinant of your profit. So the other aspects, which I've explained before, is the seller's expectation about the future. When a producer expects a price rise for the product in the near future, he or she may leave the product in the inventory, waiting to sell it after the price rises. Now you already have the product in your store. You have it, and you are now getting the information by June, the price of these goods will increase to 200 naira from 150. So what you can do is to keep those stock and wait for the increment in price. So this leads to decreased supply in the current period.
Bro, you have 8 minutes. Yep. 8 minutes more.
Are you serious? Wow. Okay, that's those factors that affect supply. The number of sellers in the market, it's also have effect on the factors that affect supply. So let's look at supply function and look at the supply curve, the schedule. So if you are talking about the supply function, it measures the supplied amount of a commodity as a function of its price. The supply function is trying to show the relationship between the price and the quantity supplied to the market. If the price is at this level, how many quantity were you able to supply? When the price reduced from this level to this level, how many quantity were you able to supply? So that shows the relationship that exists between the supply and between the quantity supplied and the amount they are selling the products. That's the price. The supply curve is the graph of the supply function. or supply schedule. When you plot the supply function, that means the relationship that is between the price and the quantity. If you plot it on a graph, so you call it the supply curve. You call it the supply curve. Okay. At that point, let's discuss about law of supply. Law of supply. We are talking about the law that guides supply. What does the law say? The law says that the higher the price, the higher the quantity supplied. If the price of the quantity of the goods increase in the market, try more because you want to make profit. But if the price reduce, you reduce the quantity you are supplying to the market because you don't want to be at loss. So at that point, we are saying the law says that the higher the price, the higher the quantity supplied, and the lower the price, the lower the quantity supplied. So what we are saying is that there is a positive relationship between the price and the quantity. Neutrally, there is a positive relationship between the price and the quantity. Once they increase the price in the market, indirectly, everybody will increase the quantity they are supplying to the market because they want to make maximum profit or abnormal profit. That's the why it's showing the relationship. If you are talking about a positive relationship, what do we mean by a positive relationship? We are talking about when in the same direction. When they go in the same direction, as price is increasing, quantity you are supplying is increasing. As price is reducing, quantity supply is also reducing. I think we have to round up at this point. Is there any question before we say bye-bye for next week? Hello, class. Any question? So in the absence of no question, that means we need to end this class. Yeah. So we discussed about the concept of supply, what the supply is all about. We also talk about the factors that affect supply. Then we move on to supply function. Then before we now end up at the law that affects law of supply. So we are going to meet next week. Thank you, class. Thank you, guys. Bye.